welcome everybody to our Heart Connection and Self-Love Remote Healing Circle workshop. Lots of words here. My name is Jona Bryndis, and I want to welcome all of you to this timely workshop with all these different things that are going on here in our world. I actually found this workshop very, very timely to remember, what our true power really is, and that is in connection, and that is the part that we are right now being restricted in. So I want to thank our wonderful trans coaches, Cheryl, Gosha, Cindy, Denise, and Rick, who facilitated this energy session just right now, and all of you for coming. People are still logging on, so I'm going to use the time to unmute your microphones and to remind everybody that this is a workshop. It's not a lecture. So it's of utmost importance that you guys feel the permission to speak. I hope you all have pen and paper ready, because we're going to go through some questions, reflections together, and we'll develop our healing strategy here together. All right, so that's very important. We had in the session right now, so the first half of it was basically identifying sort of what these things are that inhibit our awareness, and also our willingness to connect, the blocks really. And we went through all of this by going through your guys's personal energy field. So you can also ask about your personal stuff here, but that's not the main objective. The main objective is for you to become an active participant in your spiritual or consciousness journey, and to learn how to reflect, and also how to express that reflection. So when it comes to heart connection and the aspect directly underneath heart connection, which is self-love, it's very, very important to continually work on our vocabulary, to work on our literacy, to begin to put this into words. And it's not about the words, but it is, as we are trying to find words, we are aligning to this frequency, this heart connection and self-love frequency. And this is really where it happens, guys. So we're going to have, or put the emphasis here on sharing and also understanding. So there's lots of slides, and to be honest with you, during the session, there were so many things that came forward in this first half, all right, that we got so into this after half of the session, right, that we forgot that the session was only 45 minutes long. Rick, Gosha, Cheryl, Denise, would you like to just give your first impression here as to what this session was for us? Did you feel this too, like how we got really into it after like sort of 25 minutes or so?
Yes, hello everyone.
Hi,
Gosha here. For me, the session actually started really joyful and really like dancing around and jumping. Was so exciting. And then when we went through the process, what was blocking us was showing up. And then, like you said, Yana, 25 minutes into it, everyone was like into it. The main thing that stuck out for me was actually working on that trust and that inner connection. like really practicing it and taking the time and space and dedicating oneself. I think the trust over here was most important, is
Mhm.
to like, if we exercise it and say I trust that I am connected, and then come up with some kind of solution for self to build that trust, because that
Yeah,
energy, the heart energy is so beautiful and so powerful that it will aid us in facing whatever arises, whatever is ahead of us.
wonderfully said, Gosha. That was basically what the session was about, right? To investigate and to remove those blocks that that hold us back from trusting in our inner connection, right? So that was the main part. So we started out, all excited about, actually taking this time to connect. And then layer for layer, we began to run into objections, right? Like why we can't do it, or why
Yeah.
it's difficult, or, I don't want to talk too much about this, but you said this very beautiful. What are some other impressions that you guys had
Hi,
during
it's
this session?
Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl.
It's what Gasha just said about trust. I took me a minute to click in and hear what she said, but I didn't even know that the session was going on. I have no idea how I skipped writing it down on my calendar or even registering. And so when Gasha was saying that, I thought, wow, that's the trust for me, that I just happened to go on the Skype thread and whoa, it's starting. And I'm like, I didn't know about it. So like you just said, Gosha, that it's about trust and knowing that things will unfold and to just let go into it. So that's a big takeaway for me. And the session was awesome. I mean, it was um, easy to see the influences that were coming in, both external and internal. So, like Gosha said, it just had a really nice flow to it, and it was deep and loving.
Yeah, so we missed the the end of the session. We so got into it, right? Then we're like, oh shoot, guys, we got to end. The webinar starts in a few minutes, because normally we have an hour session, right? And I thought today that we want to really dedicate this time to sharing and talking, rather than just sort of doing this with ourselves. It's important to do this with ourselves, but all of you guys here in this community, you already get the message. It's something that we need to decide. We have to consciously choose to connect. Nobody else can do this for us, right? So let's work through this together here. Thank you, Cheryl, for sharing. Any more impressions?
Yeah, hi, this is Denise. Yeah, like the big impression for me was like starting the session, I felt like I had no space. Like I felt like I was a little cramped, even though there's a lot of physical space.
Uh-huh.
And as we went on the session, I realized that there was an unmet need. And
Unmet
by
need?
meeting,
Okay.
and by meeting my own needs, it was simple, just drinking water, right? But like by meeting my own need, I felt peace, and I felt like there was space through in and around me, like everywhere. And the trust aspect that Gosha and Sharon mentioned came really strong for me, along with allowing and stepping back from control and feeling. It's feeling my own needs. That was really strong for me. So.
That's super cool that you could make this connection in the session. That not listening to your own deeper inner needs, and it could be as simple as drinking water or sleep or something like that, that can actually inhibit inner connection. That's really cool. Thank you, to me.
Yeah, thanks.
Any more impressions?
Hi everyone, Rick's here. How you
Hi.
doing? What a beautiful session. I'm still feeling very reverent, almost on the verge of tears, just at the beauty and the freedom and the support that that comes with that heart connection and ultimately leads to self-love. The session was beautiful. Of course, we got to feel some of what's holding us back, which isn't always pleasant, but that's necessary in order to really cultivate that connection and ultimately return to that love, to that self-love, which is really the love of the divine that's in us. And just beautiful. I'm just still in this really reverent space of just being blessed in so many different ways, and to be here and to be here with all of you, and to go through this session and to really amplify that. There's really few words that I can find that really truly capture what that connection means.
Mm. Thank you, Rick. It fills me with reverence listening to you. Very beautiful here. You're getting applause here from other participants. Thanks. You know, I also noticed something when you started speaking, Rick, that it's almost shocking, but unbelievably relieving to hear a man say these things. This might be my own restriction here. I want to just put this out there that it felt really good to hear you as a male say these things. There was an extra healing in that. Very beautiful. Did anybody feel that too? It's like we hear it, we don't hear this very often.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
it, it,
Very
it,
beautiful.
it shows us, sort of actually our longing, I mean, it doesn't really matter if we are male or female, but it is this expression part that we often forget. This, of course, in this community, we all understand that it's about heart connection, and we all understand that there is really nothing to lose. And yet, though, like in most spiritual or self awareness circles, we have sort of, like women dominating here probably by 80%. So it's always really refreshing and healing to hear this as a woman. I'm speaking just as a woman here right now. As a healer, I know that there is no difference in how we perceive connection and how we perceive love internally, whether we are male or female. There is absolutely no difference. On this true self or higher self level, where, all these things such as gender or role, sorry, understanding where all this falls away, on the pure sort of internal processing of love and connection, we are all the same. We experience this the same. We just don't express it in the same way. And maybe that's some, part of our collective task here. Oftentimes, our social values, inhibit this. It's not really common for men unless they're in the healing arts or in, sort of consciousness circles, to express that without feeling some kind of, I don't know, Rick, I mean, you're the expert and being a man.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well, I mean, compared to me. What would you like to just, this is a small excursus, but would you like to share with us what it's like for a guy to talk about these things? How often are you actually able to talk about these things in your
Oh, very
daily
rarely.
life?
Yeah, I mean, very, very rarely. And and over the years, that's certainly been challenging. transCODES and all of you beautiful people have helped with that tremendously, because this is a space where I can speak in such ways without any, I want to say any concern, but I don't really have concern when I'm speaking, when I would say things of this sort out and about in the everyday world. It's just that few, especially men, would have any real understanding of that. Just because from my standpoint, very few men are really connected, and certainly that can be true for women as well. But this is a language that we're not really taught as men to speak in. We're not supposed to have feelings. We're not supposed to be emotional in any way. And so it's a language that I've had to learn. It was there all along. I just never used it. So it's very healing for me to be able to say those things. And I wasn't really going to say anything right now, in a sense, because I wasn't necessarily able to find the words, but I just kind of went for it because there just was this feeling that it helps me tremendously to express as well, and to flex that muscle so that
So you trust
it
it.
becomes
You just
better.
trust it.
Yeah,
That it,
yeah,
no matter how it comes out, it'll be all right.
it'll be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot in what you just said. It's very, very cool. And it's so healing, really, to hear this. What do you think, Rick? I mean, you are, you work with people, you are in the healing arts. What are your observations in regards to this statement that you just made, that you feel like men are generally less connected?
I think that makes life very hard for them. Undoubtedly, not having that connection, and I can see it. I mean, I can see and feel the pain that's underneath the facade. I think many are longing to be able to have that connection. They don't know how, and that's it's painful for me to observe because I've been there, and so I know what it's like to not be connected. And now I know what it's like to be connected. And there's a vast difference in the way one moves through the world with a connection versus without.
And would you agree that it really depends on the individual's awareness and conscious choice to actually do it, right? To actually embody it, or to actually go out there? I mean, it takes obviously a little bit of overcoming of maybe social restrictions, right? But
Definitely.
what you said earlier sounded to me like there was a point in your life where this kicked in for you, that this lack of connection and the lack of, or the lack of expression of that connection, right? Bringing this into the world, and also recognizing maybe some of the practical issues that come with this, that you had to make a conscious choice, literally, like work on it. I don't know if this was the
Hmm.
word you used, but it sounded to me like you had this moment where you realized you have to consciously give yourself permission and choose to be in connection and to become someone who is connected. Is that the way you think it has to go for other men as well? Sort of as a, I mean, for all of us, obviously, but this conscious connection, like it has to be a conscious choice.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I had to experience the connection to even know that it was possible.
Okay.
And then I really had to, nurture it like a child, and give it space. And I had to really consciously work on, as you said, cultivating that connection. And then I had to go from that to being able to express it, to be able to really, I don't want to say define it, but just describe it, because it's not part of our normal language. As men, most men aren't really brought up with a situation like this one that we're in right here on this webinar, where we can openly share those things. And that was incredibly difficult for me, as a child, not really having anyone, to open up to, and not really knowing that I had a heart connection. And so yeah, I had to make a choice, and it's been an ongoing process for a number of years to really get to the point where I can get connected. I can feel when I'm out of connection and get right back into connection, and use that connection to guide me through my life, and to really avoid a lot of the difficulties that I used to have, the concerns, the worries, the expectations and all of those things that were blocking it now don't really affect me all that much. I can feel them. I can feel that I could go in that direction, but then I just go back into connection as quickly as I recognize that I'm out of it. But it definitely was something that I had to work at, and it's not. It's a gift in one way, but it's not a gift in the way of like I was born with this. It's not that. It's a
There's no
true
luck
gift.
factor to
Yeah,
it.
it's a
Yeah.
true gift to be able to get connected, but it's something that's possible for everybody. I definitely don't want to insinuate that this is something that people are born with or they're not. It's something that is available to everyone, and that includes men and women.
Rick, if you could send a message out there to other men, and there are some, here present, and there are also some that will listen to this recording here as part of this self-healing community. But what would you recommend? What would be the message you would send out? Well, it's to all of us, really, but specifically to men as to how to approach this. You said something earlier that you recognize that a lot of men want the same thing. They're longing for it, but they don't really know how to. What would you recommend? What would be some things that you've pinpointed for yourself that can help a person, but especially men, to overcome some of these confusions or blocks or fears?
Whew. That's there's a lot of things I could say in relation to that. And first of all, it's just being in touch with your emotions, just feeling your emotions. I think was one of the first steps for me because I pushed them down so much. I had nowhere to go with them. I had no one to talk to regarding them, so I just pushed them all down. And so I had to begin to first experience those emotions, even most notably the painful ones, because I would just cope or repress. And just really get in touch with those inner feelings, then the sensations inside, instead of just thinking and reacting and pausing and just shifting your attention to your heart and trying to feel out which way to go or what to do, rather than relying on this sort of more macho means. Getting softer, I think, is important. And being around children, I have 2 daughters, that has helped tremendously. But pets, pets. I mean, anything to begin to feel a connection with. Ultimately, we want to be connected with ourselves, but connection in general helps to facilitate that. And then just sticking with it, just really sticking with it, making this commitment to continue no matter what, to work toward really enhancing that connection. Energy work, and obviously transCODES has been a huge part of my growth and my ability to get connected, and I'm forever grateful for that. But there are other ways, of course, and so ultimately what we want to do is we want to walk through our daily life with the connection. And so we really need to consciously do that, pay attention with where we're at, and learn to adjust and connect on the fly.
So what I hear you say is that giving yourself permission to feel emotions, and maybe also to refrain from judging emotions, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like good and bad emotions. That's something that I observe a lot. Is that especially if we take things such as anger, for instance, it always comes with guilt somehow, and more judgment. For example, or pain, especially for a male, experiencing pain is something that we don't give ourselves permission to. Well, I'm speaking in we terms, being a female, but I mean, it really is the same for all of us, but it can be harder for someone who's conditioned to not show pain, for instance, or to not show anger, to make this even harder to connect, because if we can't connect to our emotions, And we will go through this here really layer for layer, because that was one of the big messages here in this session, that whatever it is that is holding us back from connecting is really weaving through all these different layers of our being. The physical connection, the emotional connection, the mentally, the intellectual connection, the social aspects of connection, the spiritual aspects of connection, and then obviously also the energetic parts, the energetic aspects of connection. So yeah, it's a big journey for all of us. And Rick, thank you so much. This was extremely valuable here. We normally have Jeff and Roger here as well for counterbalance. um, and this reminds me actually how I started out with these healing circles. I don't remember if it was 2012 or 2013 when we had the first healing circle, but we actually started out separating them. We had a remote women's healing circle and a remote men's healing circle. And we were, at the time, it seemed to be the best way to go. And to have Jeff facilitate the men's healing circle and talk sort of in guide terms about these things. And as time progressed and as the consciousness level grew, and obviously also as our overall collective situation shifted, and I honestly also don't remember when I decided that, I put them together. I no longer wanted them to be separate. I thought it was more valuable if we do this together. And you just gave us a beautiful example of someone who was actually there from the beginning, and
I
went through
remember
all
when they were
these,
separate. Yeah.
yeah, and went through all these different stages really of connecting with others. It's very, very cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Cindy is also commenting here that it's really about giving ourselves permission to connect. That came forward for her during the session, that this can be, sort of part of what is holding us back, really. So here are the observations during our session. Those are things that I, sort of filtrate out of the energy work that we do during the transmission. And it's more or less all the things that we've talked about, just in a more concise way, from an energetic point of view. So the main theme here was really experiencing this vacillating, this back and forth, wanting it, but then not wanting it, or feeling blocked, or retreating again, withholding again. This confusion that we just talked about. And there was a very interesting aspect to this that I had previously not even talked about, and that is seeing connection like a substance, like something that is only available to a certain amount. This is a materialistic point of view that is underneath that, where we basically see this as something which then later also came in again here with this scarcity and lack aspect of it. So we're seeing connection as something that is somehow limited, and can therefore also trigger these fears and these trust issues in us, that remind us of worthiness or not deserving love. And a lot of times going through your guys' energy fields, we recognize that this had to do with trauma, and also a certain way this is wired in you. So this is the big part here of my takeaway from this session, is that we could see on an energetic level how our relationship to connecting, be it within ourselves and the self-love that is unlocked through this connection, or the connection with other people, and the true love that is unlocked in conjunction with others, that can be inhibited by the conditioning and sort of a wiring that we have, our attitude towards love. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And obviously, there's also the unrealistic expectations, the ones towards ourselves, of course, that have to do with, basically not really knowing who we are. Rick, you mentioned a few things here that indicate that, like especially when we talked about the gender differences or the conditioning, this can lead to us seeing ourselves in a certain way that doesn't allow us to express certain things or even go there. Then, of course, and again here, this is a basically the culmination of what we saw in all of your guys' energy fields, the externalization really that comes up with when we think of or try to connect, that we somehow unconsciously believe we have to connect with something outside of us. And this often plays out in our longing, all right? But there's also a component to this that we could feel very clearly here during the session, and that had to do with resentment too. This link back into the worthiness, because when we feel like we need to be in a certain way and in order to deserve love, and we're not feeling it, okay, for whatever reason, we cannot see that it's the externalization. This creating an object of love. This could be anything from God, or something divine, to our understanding thereof, to needing a person or something, a thing, or whatever. But there's a resentment that is underneath that when we don't get it. It's almost childlike, like I want it, but I'm not getting it. And then I begin to fixate even more on it. And that then leads to it, becoming even less obtainable. This also showed, some of these scarcity lack issues that come with connection, where we somehow feel that it is limited or conditional in some way, and also aspects of sacrifice. Did anybody feel this? That like it's almost like you want it, but you feel like if you go there, you have to give up something. It's almost like a risk, almost. Okay, there's a risk in this. And when we went a little deeper into this, we could tell that this lack of trust, right? Not only that this connection is always there and that it's really something reciprocal within ourselves, but that it is in our attitude towards it, something that we are also a bit afraid of because we can't control it. And all that then leading to recognizing, and this was something that Gosha said, and also Denise, that it's a conscious choice. It is not something that is bestowed upon us if we are good enough, which is also here, like hints at one of the most prevalent block when it comes to self-love, namely thinking that I have to be in a certain way to deserve it, or not good enough. This not good enough programming that we all have, basically our collective disease here in this modern society. All right, it delivered us the medicine for this, the remedy for this, and that is that all we need to do is really to choose to connect within. And as we do that, we begin to feel that there is something there and it is in us. It doesn't come from the outside. And as we realize that, then we also begin to feel that it's abundantly available. And that sharing connection, sharing our love, is ultimately something that increases our love, that increases our connection. So this is sort of the culminated wisdom here of your guys' energies, okay, that already understand these higher vibratory concepts. But as we've already mentioned, also run into, the conditioned part in us here in 3D that makes it difficult sometimes. And this is sort of the vibratory rate here that was shown during the session. So we have a fundamental belief that we do not deserve love, or that it is something that is a result or consequence of being in a certain way, and that triggers a deep form of fear and shame in us. And the energy that is needed, the frequency that is needed to make this a conscious choice, to get past this conditioned fear or confusion or distrust, is courage. Is the courage to, like Rick, gave us beautiful examples here, to overcome, these things that are holding us back, by recognizing that is actually something we are designed for. We want this. We want this more than anything else. Okay, and so it is our self-selection, basically, that we say, I do deserve connection, I do deserve love. And it also reminds us of, me, that is, if you are familiar with this, some Buddhic wisdom, and that basically says that the lack of connection is the core, or the source of all suffering. Separation is the core of all suffering. So speaking about these things here in this higher vibratory manner shows us really where a lot of our pain and our, dissonances with ourselves, where that comes from ultimately, is not being connected. So let's, any more comments here to the session? Anything that you would like to add, maybe, or things that came up for you? Okay, there's no questions, so let's just move on here into a brief sort of overview what heart connection is. So this is a sort of more of an intellectual understanding here, and I've added something during the session, and that is the chemistry of connection. Now, this is maybe a bit too scientific or too dry here for most of you, but I do want you guys to understand this. There is a substance, literally a neurotransmitter, that, and a lot of other things, hormones and so forth. I'm sure you familiar with the fundamental concept behind this, that gets released inside of us when we feel connected. And this is defined here as, methods that allow us to rest, that allow us, to take care of ourselves. Every time we really do this sort of touchdown with ourselves and do something for ourselves, it releases a substance in us, and that's called oxytocin. And that substance has the power to decrease our pain and also our pain memory. But the problem with that is that if we allow our pain to be dominant, then the counter neurotransmitter, the adrenaline, is released, and it just decreases the oxytocin again, which plays directly into our today's lifestyle. Stress, outer stress, inner confliction, all right, brings the pain, the suffering back into the foreground and decreases this neurotransmitter. if this doesn't happen, and if we can stay in connection and learn how to really cultivate this. I love, Rick, how you used the word cultivating, because that is really what our choice needs to be about. It's a dedication, like Gosha said, it's this like consciously choosing to connect. Endorphins are released. So as a consequence of this increased level of oxytocin, endorphins are formed in us, and we all know what endorphins are. You know, they make us get through pain. They motivate us. They unleash life force. They unleash powers in us that make us feel competent, that make us feel good about ourselves. And it releases more oxytocin as a consequence of that, because we start feeling, oh, we feel competent, we feel connected, we feel much more in touch with ourselves and much more motivated to go into the self-care and self-love activities. And also, and this is the part here that most of us don't really have on their radar, it has an effect on the way we think, the way we see things, the way we conceptualize things. It brings love and love memory into the foreground. It's basically something that makes us optimistic and trusting and open. Whereas the stress lifestyle, okay, and constantly living in this scarcity and constriction and, you know, basically ego lifestyle, all right, produces too much of the the counter transmitter, neurotransmitter adrenaline, and it's of course more complex than that, but I really wanted you guys to understand this. And the way they found out about this, guys, if you're interested in the history of this, is they could not explain for the longest time, and I think those are studies, please don't quote me on that, but I think they were done in the 60s, how it is possible for a woman to go through this enormous physical pain through giving birth and immediately forgetting about it, basically, the moment she holds the baby in her hands, and then over the course of, you know, a couple of years, literally not recalling the pain of the birth. This was a phenomenon that has really motivated psychology and also, of course, neuroscience and so forth to try to find out what actually happens in that female body at birth. And this is how they came to find this out. All right. So oxytocin, often you know, called the happy hormone, you know, but it's very specific. There's other happy hormones such as dopamine. You've probably heard about this, and here is also where a little bit of our confusion lies. Oxytocin is a neurotransmitter, is very specific. And it's needed, for instance, as a building block for dopamine as well. But it's very specific, or it's being released when we go into connection. There is a part in our system, in our 3D body, that recognizes when we are in this deep connection, which is basically sort of the explanation why we always say, as humans, we are designed to connect. Not just on this neurotransmitter level, also on other levels, on a neurological level, for instance. The fastest way for us to learn is through mirroring, through you know, neuroplasticity, through observing others, to mimicking others, and so forth, but also through experiencing emotions together. So we are indeed, okay, I just wanted to throw this in here for you, designed to connect. Even our 3D body is designed to connect. And that is the reason why we see so many psychosomatics, chronic conditions, physical conditions, but also, of course, emotional, mental conditions that can be led back to the lack of connection, too low oxytocin levels in a person. And guess what? Meditation increases oxytocin in us. This kind of work, transmissions, workshops, talking about these things, expressing inner connection, all increases oxytocin in us. Gosh, I think you were the one who said, and we could all feel this at the very beginning of the session here, really looking at the energetic aspects. There was a sort of an uplift there right away. Immediately, there was something released in us that made us feel really, really good. But then, as it was about staying there and, sort of not getting distracted, maybe our mind came in, or we had outer distractions, or, to hold this connection for 45 minutes, right? That we learned is not that easy. There is a continual sort of this vacillation, this in and out. Okay. And this is really what we want to encourage you here to really work with. Okay, it's a wonderful opportunity right now in this coronavirus situation here, where we are kind of forced to go into self-reflection and through the isolation part, and also where our outer connections, the physical connection with other people, where this is restricted from the outside. So in order to prevent these psychosomatics, which often really suppress our immune system, which is also why so many autoimmune problems actually come with this lack of inner connection, all right, or the lack of the oxytocin, too much adrenaline, also comes with common conditions such as heart problems, and vascular problems. They all can all be led back to the lack of connection or lack of heart connection, and lead to lowered immune system, it lowers our health. Okay, and right now those are things that we are really that we really want to focus on. So in a way, we can look at this workshop here as something that can help increase our physical health, that can increase our physical immune system, our etheric immune system, to allow us to out vibrate this overall global situation here. It doesn't mean that if we actually get infected, and this is to be expected. I mean, then the official numbers right now are that now 50 to 70% of us will, maybe already were infected. We don't even know this. This is the unknown part here of this virus, because there 50%, half of us don't even have any symptoms. Yeah, and 70% have just mild symptoms. So it's very hard to say. Okay. Here is a question. What about allergy? Is allergy something that has to do with this? Wonderful question, Annette. If you want to know the answer, or if you want to hear the answer from me as an energy healer, as a holistic healer who looks at physical health as something holistic and integrative that is linked into emotional and mental and spiritual patterns and energetic patterns, obviously, the answer is a clear yes. It is an oversensitivity to stimulus, an allergy. It's an autoimmune system. There is something there that makes our body attack itself. That's what an allergy is, from an energetic point of view, from an holistic point of view. So instead of going outside, like if you, for a moment just personalize it that way, and fight off, like, say, things that come in from the outside, right? Germs, viruses, bacteria, all kinds of things. The immune system is wired in the wrong way, that it goes against something within. Okay. Now, there are also 3D reasons for allergies, and that has to do with an actual overstimulation, has to do with the culmination of toxins in our life and lifestyles. All right, so there is a certain level as to what our body can take, like say toxins coming from household items, from paints, from furniture, from cleaning substances, from our food. All right, that can lead to the body literally going into this oversaturation of like, I can't take this anymore, because it's overstimulated, trying to excrete, trying to detox those outer poisons that are coming in, that at some point it just gets too weak to do that, and then it gets confused. So it's an overreaction, if you will. It also has to do with our food production. And of course, the use of herbicides and pesticides, as when if our allergy is related to foods. Okay, this also is clearly linked to a culmination. All right, which is why we generally recommend people to have a diet that is composed of as natural products as possible, less processed, less um, packaged, and so forth, to reduce the total amount of uh, toxins and excitotoxins that are coming in. But also, yes, exactly, Denise, also from medications. All right, so it's basically twofold. Allergies are a twofold problem. It's the overstimulation, from our lifestyles, okay, and the lack of connection that then leads to an over sensitivity, kind of like the fire alarm that goes off for no reason at all times. So that is, in a nutshell, from a holistic point of view, what an allergy is. Okay, so it's misguided, and allergies can be reversed. They can be treated, and most of the autoimmune or mystery diseases as well. But it requires an holistic approach. Now, this was just an answer here on the 3D level. I want you guys to recognize that toxicity cannot just come in through actual substances. Toxicity can also come in through emotions, toxic relationships, yeah, toxic thoughts as well. And of course, also self-degrading, self-destructive, self-hatred based beliefs. And then, of course, there's also an etheric component such as karmic ties and so forth that can, literally poison your energy system, and with it also your body's ability to ward things off. So, from a holistic point of view, when someone has a lot of allergies, it indicates that this person, just due to the fact that it shows up in the physical, it manifests in the physical, that this person has been suffering from any of the above or all of them for a prolonged amount of time already. There are, of course, people who are born with allergies. Some of it can be traced back to genetics, genetic predispositions. But then, if someone who's born, my sister is actually born with severe allergies, and I have zero. Okay, and there are some things that. So we obviously grew up the same way. We ate the same food and so forth. So that cannot be the part. But there are other circumstances, karmic circumstances here, in comparison between my sister and I, that have created a different energetic situation for her coming into this world. All right, and so for her, uh, these things that we've already identified as potential causes, they all play in together in ways that are when we grow up this way with allergies already, that are often hidden for us. This is where energy work comes in, because it can prompt us to these things. It can show us what it actually is that needs to be done here as an effective healing strategy. Because when it comes to severe allergies and autoimmune diseases, literally, guys, literally, we don't have a medical doctor here amongst us right now who could confirm this, but medicine does not know what to do. It has no solutions. The only thing they can do is either reduce the symptoms or, work with, lowering the symptoms or strengthening the immune system. So for us as energy workers, the specific kind of allergies, for instance, asthma, eczema, the specific type of eczema, for instance, are very, very closely linked to the lack of heart connection. Other allergies, such as a lot of the skin conditions, psoriasis and other shingles and so forth, they are more linked to our false self projections, like how we want other people to see us. So there is a message in all of these different physical conditions, as well as in, as you all know, in our emotional and mental and spiritual conditions. Yeah. But what I wanted to do with you guys here right now is to actually work this out together. Because one thing, and I don't know if you remember this, when Rick was speaking, he said something that is, from my point of view, at the core of what we need to really work on. And that was when he talked about men, first and foremost, needing to find out what it actually feels like to be connected. And here in energy work, we called this to develop reference feelings, to even know when we connected. Can I see some hand signs from you guys here, just to get a little bit of a feel for this? Who of you can say about themselves that they have a clear reference feeling for when they are connected? And I call reference feeling, could be anything, physical, emotional, mental, anything. Not to say that you're always there, but you know when you are connected. It's those of you who just raised your hand. Would anybody like to share for you what this feels like? What does that feel like to you when you are connected? That reference feeling that you just recalled, okay, in whatever way, could be anything. What does this feel like to you? Does anybody want to share?
Hello.
Hi, Gosha.
Hi. Um, so it's a lot of different signals, and sometimes I get caught up when it felt like in total harmony, and I compare it to how it was before, so I get caught in like, oh, I used to feel this connection much better. But it's coming from the inside. It's like it wants to naturally expand. It's like a unity inside. It's gentleness. It is a life force. The perception is totally different. It's like you mentioned, the brain chemistry changes because suddenly you can see everything like through different lens of glasses, and
Like more positive or
like more positive.
optimistic.
Yes,
Yeah, optimistic. And this can literally shift from one second to another, right?
yes. But basically it's like inner knowing. It's like when you made that connection. It is by choice. It's like, first of all, I thought it's like sometimes, because sometimes it's spontaneous, and I think like it's aligning to it by itself, and sometimes it needs to be like cultivated, and it needs to be a constant choice. But it's like, but I also feel like really comfortable in my body, like so cozy, so warm, so it's like
I like that.
self-love.
Warm. This is actually something we felt during the session. A lot of heat was coming in, and I think it was Cindy. Cindy had to leave here; she had to go to work, but she mentioned that it felt like the heart heater was turned on. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, sure, yeah.
it feels warm, right? Yeah. Thank you, Gosha. That's a beautiful way of reflecting on what it feels like for yourself. But I also like how you mentioned how there's an instantaneous judgment too, like this comparison, like where you would have this sort of inner doubt, or this isn't. Why doesn't this feel as blissful as it
Yeah,
felt last
yeah.
time, or something like that? So there's also different kinds of connection that different levels or really different stages too. Like, there's a beginning connection, and then this can maybe feel something like physical, right? I'm going to write this down, guys, what you share here with me. Okay, so there's a warmth or heat. You mentioned softness, right? Like
Softness
softness or gentleness. It
and
feels soft
some sort
and
of like
positive.
some sort of union. Like I don't know how. Like it's like
That's more like overall
one
feeling,
whole.
right? Whole, yeah. So the overall feeling is whole. Yeah, because can you describe this? Why does it feel whole?
Because everything is well, everything is just complete, like um it feels concrete, anchor, like belonging, like everything is well, like I don't know if that helps, but that's how it feels to me.
Let's investigate this a little bit,
Yeah.
because that's a core here. How do we know that we are feeling whole? Listen.
I think
As-
it also relates to unconditionally loving oneself with the flaws.
yeah, like accepting and like peace, like everything is well, like
Yes, peace. Well, I like that. Yeah, because what did we feel before when we were not connected?
struggle, conflict, like
Uh-huh.
lots of movement, like everywhere, like yeah.
And something is missing, right?
Yeah.
Like as if there's something missing. And when we feel whole, the best way to notice that we feel whole is by feeling that there's nothing missing anymore. Do you guys know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden you no longer thinking about the next thing, or what you don't have, or what is being withheld, or what you're fixated on, or this is where that's what it's like for me. This is where the peace comes in, and there's also like a relief almost. So basically the opposite of unwhole, right?
Like it's
You
not
guys are laughing, but
scattered. Like it's not scattered. Like it's
mhm.
focused on the present moment fully.
Yes. Okay. That is something that clearly describes how we feel intellectually or mentally. We are literally um, in the present moment with our attention, right? We're not looking at what was before and what comes after. just right now in this very moment of connectedness. It feels everything is there. Everything is perfect the way it is.
It
This is,
feels like there's a space too. Like, I mean, there's a lot of space inside and outside, and
yes,
with others, you know, like, yeah.
it feels space. Yeah, like it's an expansion. It's an expanded feeling, right? We feel like more expanded
Yeah.
as where we maybe felt restriction or limitations before. That's an energetic sensation that we feel, we have more space now.
And it's almost a feeling like also like I'm everywhere. I am everywhere, if it makes any sense. You know, like,
Yes.
yeah, like complete, but like I'm one cell, but then like I'm also in every cell of my body. You know, like, if it makes any sense.
Yes, makes
What you're
sense.
describing, yes, what you're describing is something that we often call oneness.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is more of a spiritual sensation. This is, I mean, to just use these words like everywhere. This is kind of weird, right? Because I mean, we in our sort of normal brain state, we see ourselves as, well, I'm here, and everything else is outside of me, right? This is
Yeah.
right. I mean, it's like
Right.
literally. I mean, I have memories of maybe when I was 3 or 4 years old, where I literally became aware of that. Like this moment where I realized, oh, I'm here and everything else is outside of me. And when we feel connected, then that dissolves. We no longer feel separated from everything. I mean, that doesn't mean that we have to like everything or that we have to love everything, right? But it's from a feeling standpoint, we feel connected with everything. And this is, by the way, something that can easily be observed, and almost everybody can experience this with nature, right? It's like when we just, anybody like looking at a sunset or northern lights or a beach or a forest or a lake or animal shows, funny kitty videos. There is something there that allows us to connect with everything. It deeply resonates within us. So uh, in energetic terms, this is called coherence. We are feeling connected with everything, even though our mind knows that this is outside of me. But it's almost like the essence of that, like say the tree or the kitty that I look at, kind of reminds me of my essence. The essence feels the same. So that's a spiritual experience. Oneness is a spiritual experience. We are going into coherence. That's the energetic mechanism behind that. With, well, to use spiritual terms here, the divine nature of everything else that exists. So there's a recognition in us somewhere that resonates with this source of all, everything, all there is in us. It recognizes sentient life, if you will, life force. It resonances with the life force of everything else. This is a very high vibratory spiritual concept, by the way, that most of us, even though we experience it when we have this kind of reference feeling, but we don't even know what this is. It is actually the reminder of where we're from. It's the recognition of divinity within ourselves. And of course, when it comes to other people, then moments or situations where we experience something similar but less sort of spiritual, but more, we can also have spiritual connection with other people, but it expresses through feelings of empathy. Describing this oneness that you just mentioned. This, I can feel you. Anything else that you guys would like to add to this list? What is connection? How does it feel for you? You can see, like in just a few sentences, that you need to describe this. There are so many different components and aspects of connection.
To the social, I would like to add also that it comes like, I want to share, I want to talk, I want to have this deep conversations, I want to
Yes,
Openness, yeah.
exchange and sharing.
exchange and sharing. Yeah.
And then reverence, like, yeah.
That's typically on a spiritual level we can feel this, this reverence that who said this in the beginning? Somebody said, oh, it was Rick, I think, right? This reverent feeling, like you can feel this with yourself, but you can also feel this when you connect with others or nature. I did not feel this personally in my journey until I was able to consciously connect with nature. Then I began to feel this reverence for all there is. And then it took me another decade to realize, other humans are divine creation too. Maybe I should be a little more reverent and respectful towards other people.
Yeah, we are the same, right? Like it
Mhm.
sometimes I forget, and then it's just remembering, wait a moment, we are the same, so it's sort of like that level of compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compassion is also one. Yeah, compassion is something that I feel as an emotion as well, uh, but also with other people. So the emotional and the social, all these different layers, they're obviously not separable from another. They all kind of happen simultaneously, or one leads to the other, right? But there is something that allows us to, like due to the empathy, okay, we can feel more compassion, right? Due to the softness, we can feel more empathy. So it goes back and forth, right? Physically, we had a few other things here that you guys mentioned. There was a relief, right? Stress relief, maybe. It feels less stressful in the physical, right? Less tense, right?
Yeah.
Even lighter.
Lighter, yeah. Yeah, stress relief is so technical. Lighter, definitely lighter. We could also feel this during the session. Like we started out with a really strong tension in our neck and the upper shoulders, and that kind of resided throughout the session, throughout focusing, consciously choosing to connect. It became lighter. There's also more life force. Uh, Obviously, having a reference feeling for our life force in the beginning, this has to do with our sophistication of actually feeling our own life force, and with it, of course, the combination of all these different layers. But there can be something. I think, Gosha, you said this in the beginning. It's an excitement, right?
Yes.
It can
Yes,
almost
and
it can also be called euphoria. It's almost like a euphoria, right?
Yes, and dancing and stretching and that
Mhm.
it's not a chore anymore. It just comes naturally.
Yes,
It's like playful and
yes,
Yeah.
joyous, you know.
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So there's a life force that comes in, and it opens us up. It opens our mind, to like, whatever, just do it. One Someone who's not in this session, but who is part of the Current Energies Skype thread, Sheila shared something really cool. She said that she discovered an online sing-along meeting, and that she didn't even know that she enjoys this, that she's having like almost childlike pleasure,
Oh, that's so cool.
with like joining this online sing-along meeting, okay, between random people. This such Those are like the opportunities really, and such wonderful expressions of this creativity that we as humans can go into when our outer connections, say, when they're inhibited, right? We become creative. Yeah, there's a creativity there, and that can come, through playfulness. I want to call this creativity right now, because the playfulness is part of creativity and inspiration. Of course, in the spiritual, it'd be inspiration.
Yes, and then
It's
suddenly all resources that you need you have.
Self-sufficient.
surprise.
Yes, supportive.
Yeah.
Supportive is how that feels to me. Very supportive.
Yes, I call this medicine, or let's call this healing, really, because what you just found out, guys, is that the remedy, the medicine, the healing for whatever our condition is always starts with connection, which is also why so many of our conditions here, health conditions, mental health conditions, behavioral conditions, and emotional conditions, first and foremost, have to be addressed with beginning to connect. Because without the connection that we can, feel from within ourselves, and without having a reference feeling for it, even knowing that this exists, right? It's very difficult to know what to go for, right? I mean, we're told that we need to find a partner to make love to, right? And then marry, and then have kids, and that's connection, right? Or that we need a lot of money, or that we need a lot of praise, or that we need a lot of validation, from others. Okay, and that's then what we think could lead us to connection. Being completely unaware and almost innocent to the fact that this is actually something that contributes to us being disconnected. That this is a huge insight. The moment we actually have a reference feeling within ourselves, what it actually feels like to be connected. And then there are some things that our ego uses to mimic connection, okay, or to compensate for the lack of connection, or, and this is very common, and I want you guys to all feel compassion for this, not actually having a reference feeling for connection because it was never really part of how we grew up. How many people do we know, probably including ourselves, who weren't raised that way by parents that, or environments that promoted connection, true expression of emotions, or, just often even, true physical connection, or doing things together. We're raised in competing against another, trying to win, trying to be better, trying to protect our true feelings. right? And so many things that literally condition us to disconnect from within, and as a consequence of that, to disconnect from others and to not trust in connection, or also some misguided ideas about connection in the spiritual scene, in the New Age scene, for instance. This lack of connection got hijacked and turned into this bliss addiction. All right. And this idea that when you're in this place, all right, this oxytocin flushed place, all right, that means you are connected. And we do know that there is this physical component, the oxytocin component, but that's not all. And I want to point this out because this was something very specific about this group in this session. Namely, that some of us confuse being connected with a physical condition, the condition of being flushed with oxytocin. And this is very real, guys, in the psychology and counseling world. This is starting to become more and more aware that people suffer from self-love deficiency, and that then, as a consequence, sort of influences the neurotransmitters and literally produces mental health issues or physical issues. Okay, that's why all these sort of modern mindfulness techniques and healing, alternative healing modalities and so forth, why they now begin to really focus on breathing and connecting and tapping and all that. Those are all, somatics. Those are all sort of methodologies to reconnect a person, first on the physical level, obviously. But there is this misunderstanding of connection, and when it becomes imbalanced. So when we see it only as a physical thing, or when we see it only as an emotional thing, for instance, mistaking connection with infatuation, puppy love, right? Or when it's just purely mental. It was called platonic in the old days, but nowadays it's like literally a lot of people like the idea of connecting and with others, or even think that needs to be a spiritual goal, but it's too mental, it's too conceptual, it's not really expressed, not really embodied, and there's a lot of incongruence and cognitive dissonance there on this level in people. Some people, and this is the new agey reference here, they mistake that with sort of being in an altered state, and think they have to use hallucinogenics or drugs or certain rituals or ceremonies in order to feel this, only to find out that what they define as spiritual is nothing but a bliss addiction, and a bliss addiction is at the core of all addiction problems, namely the longing to feel connected. In recovery work, we know this, that the spiritual problem underneath any addiction, and you know that here within the sacred self-healing community, we regard the ego itself as an addiction, all right, is a misconception of what a deep connection, to this divine nature of ourselves, or, whatever you want to call the source, or what this is supposed to feel like. And what happens if people don't have their own reference feeling, their own internalized experience, is that they mistake it with things such as being high on something, being flushed by endorphins, marathon running, taking opiates, having lots of sex. Masturbation is also a big part of that. Feeling this so social, likes, like the social validation and so forth. Those are all misconceptions of connection. And as I'm speaking about this right now, you can realize something. Those are all parts of our social values here. All these things that I just mentioned. Yeah. Focusing on the right partner, the right job, the right this and that, and becoming somebody that we're not, and needing to feel bliss at all times and thrill and all that. Getting lots of likes and trying to control what other people think about us and constantly seeking something. Those are things that are, social values. That's what we have been conditioned with. And it is shocking, actually, to realize how our collective conditioning, our collective programming is distancing and disconnecting us from something that I often call, the higher power within, the inner higher power. We have that ability to connect within, and it unleashes all these things that we've just talked about, right? But the outer conditioning is diametrically opposed to that. And one variation of this theme here, I mean, these are all variations of the same theme, is only wanting to feel positive. Misunderstood connection, misunderstood empathy and compassion, or misunderstood law of attraction. Rick mentioned something in the beginning, where we have to allow ourselves to really connect with our emotions. Yes. And if we are afraid of feeling certain types of emotions, if we judge our emotions as good emotions and bad emotions, forget it. Forget it right there.
Yes, I recently needed to put my dog to sleep. I mean, it was a month ago, but I went through stages of grieving, and I allowed myself to feel everything. And the most beautiful experience I had was when because I listened to songs that I used to dance with my dog,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's cute.
the tears were coming, but my heart was actually opening up. It was very beautiful spiritual experience for me because it didn't close, and that was
No,
something.
it turned more into appreciation, right?
Yes,
Appreciation. Actually, that is something I would like to add to our list up there. You could appreciate what you're experiencing. You were no longer afraid of feeling grief because there was also all these wonderful experiences that you have shared with your dog, and they suddenly became into the foreground.
and
Right?
that's why I really like how we embrace our humanness, being human, because if we not judge our emotions and everything, then they are all beautiful.
Yes, but what does that require us to do first, though? Think about it. What do we
Connect
need
with
for
our
it?
heart.
Right, but I mean, what is it that we need to overcome in order to connect with our heart?
Judgment.
Yeah, we need to trust, right? Because the reason why we don't trust is because we judge. So, in regards to emotions here, since we're talking about this, so only wanting to feel positive emotions is is a dead end. Okay, this creates a lot of judgment in us because when we are experiencing pain or fear or grief, well, then we shove it away. We don't want to feel it because it's a quote unquote negative emotion, right? So we got to stop judging our emotions and see that all emotions have very important functions, that they serve us, that they can guide us, that they can teach us, and that it's important that we allow ourselves to feel our emotions. The example you brought, Gosha, is a really, really good example. Allowing ourselves to go through grief, which at first, of course, reminds of the loss, right? Nobody wants to feel loss. So we go into this conditioned response where we don't want to feel grief because it reminds us of our loss. But if we actually go into it and allow ourselves to connect with what it actually is that grief brings forward. Yes, obviously there's a logic, your dog is no more. But there's a lot of things that you've experienced with your dog, a lot of love, unconditional love, a lot of expression of things, and obviously also experiences that you share.
Yes, and the constant excitement, and they are so excited for the very next thing.
Dogs are wonderful teachers. In English,
Yeah.
there's a saying that we got this all wrong. God spelled backwards is dog. So
Oh wow!
we all just get dogs. Be more spiritual. We'd be more connected. Yes, I agree with that. It's a very, very powerful experience. The first time we allow ourselves to consciously feel grief, pain, fear, all these, or even anger, all these quote unquote negative feelings, right?
Because it feels like there is a hidden treasure once we trust, right?
Yeah. And then, and then of course that's an upward spiral, right? Because it then, motivates us. It's like, oh, okay. And then we begin to become aware of how much we've actually been withholding and not allowing ourselves to feel certain things because we judge them as negative. But how many times in our life do we actually find out that holding on to something or protecting ourselves from something, that it does the opposite from what we long the most? It disconnects us. How many times do we find out that trying to control love actually drives love away?
Every time.
Yeah. I know. This is now like sort of a no-brainer when you're coming from that state of connection. You see this so clearly.
It's like allowing ourselves to feel vulnerable, right? And like uncomfortable. Sometimes it can be, if it's new, to feel uncomfortable and to not be in control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what does that mean? Uncomfortable. It means ego. It means
right.
comfort. It means, yeah, sometimes, growing from within, from through our connection means to overcome some of our comfort zone.
Yeah,
Because our comfort zone that makes us feel protected, that makes us feel not vulnerable, that makes us feel to be somebody, all of these things is actually what prevents it. Now think about it. Protecting ourselves because we don't want to feel vulnerable, withholding love because we don't want to be betrayed, not wanting to express anger or feel anger because we think it's not, because it's rude, or because it's dangerous. Okay, all these things, these mindsets that we sit in our comfort zone, right? That create illusions of safety, illusions of connection. They're ultimately what are holding us back from being connected within. And obviously, as a consequence, then also from connecting with others. This belief that we have to deserve it is, very, very strongly linked to this worthiness issue that we all feel, which links into this not good enough, and this search for perfection and performance anxiety and so forth. But this is very, very deeply ingrained in all of us. It weaves through all these layers. On a physical level, we feel maybe unlovable because we have flaws, okay? Because I don't even know where to begin, because I feel too fat, because my kneecaps are too round, because my hair color is too this, and you name it, okay? Because I have a muffin top, or because I don't have enough muscles, or whatnot, okay? On an emotional level, we feel like we don't deserve things because maybe because we are, not actually expressing love ourselves. Yeah, whenever we judge our emotions, whenever we, suppress things such as resentment and anger and fear and so forth, we can literally not imagine that somebody could love us, because we cannot love ourselves emotionally. And mentally, of course, there's beliefs that we have, that obviously expectations and so forth that we've already illuminated, but also the things such as it's hard, assuming that it's hard, or that it has to be in a certain way, that we have to feel in a certain way, like this bliss addiction thing. It has to feel in that way. And then we're like out there searching for heart connection all our lives, missing the point. We're looking in the wrong direction. Or, you know, very often, and this is then, something that often happens sort of on the social level of connection, is we're waiting for something on the outside to change. We're waiting for something. Or we fixate on changing everything on the outside, right? Making the partner a better partner, wanting the partner to be different from how she is or he is, instead of focusing on becoming a better partner, instead of focusing on feeling more lovable from within, because that is then what the partner goes into coherence with. Here's some food for thought. The more we can love ourselves, the more we radiate this, and I'm talking true connection and true self-love, the more other people will go into coherence with this, into resonance with this, and they will, begin to do the exact thing that we've already worked out. They will want to share this. They will want to go into mutual exchange. So you begin to attract the type of people that are only interested in that kind of connection. And spiritually, what is this, not feeling good enough, is that we think we're sinners, we don't deserve, we judge ourselves so much, okay, like as if tomorrow is judgment day, okay, and we don't even have the permission to connect. We're waiting for absolution from outside, or trying to hide the facts. This is this whole shadow stuff comes in. We're lying to ourselves that, that all the things that we cannot love about ourselves, that all the things that we see as flaws or as sins, all right, that they make it impossible for us to, feel our divinity or even have the permission to go there. And then energetically, needless to say that these mechanisms such as coherence and radiance and so forth and resonance, those are all things that come from within. That is a decision, that is a choice that has to come from within. It has to become congruent in the way that we don't only just have the intention of doing that, we don't only develop the vocabulary to do that, the emotional part and the literacy and really, allowing ourselves to connect with our emotions. We also embody that by acting in that way, acting compassionately, acting empathetically, but not just with others, also with ourselves, with our own bodies, the temple of our soul, okay? Showing self love to ourselves, connecting to our body and recognizing, having that reverence that we can feel when looking at something that we adore, like the sunset, to our own body. Oh my God, this body is a divine creation as well. Who the F cares what it looks like? Yes, if we have physical condition and it doesn't conditions and they don't feel good from within, okay, then what does this mean? We have to connect more and learn more, self-loving ways, okay, to ease our body, to relax our body, to de-stress it, to, all these different things that we can do for ourselves to self-heal. We have to focus on self-healing. That is basically the, sorry guys, it's the fundament here, energetically, of self-healing, okay, to understand that at the core, it's the alpha and the omega. At the core of self-healing is the connection within. And this is contrary from what we think. We think we have to seek something or accomplish something or acquire something or we need something. Okay? Remember the wholeness we talked about? We feel unwhole. We think somebody needs to give us a wand or a medication for this or a partner or money or it's, can you guys see this? How when we are disconnected, we literally can't see the forest for the trees. Or how does the saying go? The tree for the forest? I think it's the tree for the forest, right? I'm sure. So this is really what we are dealing with. And this has to do with, stepping out of our comfort zone, obviously. First we have to even know who we are. What Rick shared with us in the beginning was a wonderful testimony for this. What defines me? How am I bringing me into expression? What are my strengths? What am I withholding? Why am I withholding this? And how am I withholding? These are, this connection, this heart connection. These are questions that we don't have the time here in this workshop today. Maybe we should do a second workshop to actually answer those questions, because this working things out together as we have been doing this here is extremely conducive. I don't know if you can feel this too. It's like we're sharing our medicine, and it makes it even more synergistic in that way. It's more than just us contributing here. But those are self-reflective questions that can help us to better connect within. And then knowing our true heart's desire, what we truly want and how we want it. And as Denise shared with us in the beginning, she found out what are my true needs? How do I actually work with my needs? What is holding me back from manifesting those, my true heart's desire? And what do I truly need to focus to get there? And what am I willing to do for it? Or really the question, am I actually doing these things? Am I really willing to do this? So there's this gap between our mental idea of our intellectual idea of what we want and what we need to do forward. And then the practical application, the congruence, where we actually not doing it, where we're doing the opposite. And then really begin to work like we've all agreed on this here, uh, layer for layer, bit by bit. What is actually holding me back? What's the problem here? Why can I not realize my inner connection, although it's always there? Why am I treating it like something that is being withheld from me, and therefore I'm withholding it from you? Now, if I can't get it, you can't have it. I'm not giving you that. Or, oh no, this is way too vulnerable. Or, what if I give you too much and you not giving me the same amount back? What if it scares? And all these things. I'm just sort of throwing this out there. Our inner processes that come up when it comes to investigating what is actually holding me back. What are my expectations? Are they even realistic? Do I give myself permission to want it? Who of you has caught themselves at some point in your journey realizing that you haven't even given yourself permission to want something? Where you had a thought process that maybe sounded like, oh, I want this, but no, I don't deserve this, or no, that's not for me. Yes, that's almost all of us. That's something we need to reflect on with ourselves. And then, yeah, am I afraid of making mistakes? Sure, we are, but let's investigate those. What is the mistake here? What is the mistake in trying to love myself? Where is it? Where is it? What could be wrong about that? About exploring this connection with myself, and also finding out, of course, the things that actually, disconnect me, or trying to connect with other people. Of course, we're going to make mistakes. How can we not? That is the way to grow and mature. Okay, we will learn the things that don't work, and then we will move on and try again, because it's in our nature. It is that divinity in us, that divine nature that is pre-programmed in us, in our being. Okay, not in our doing, in our being, to go and connect anyway. And in terms of self-love, that be translated to go and love ourselves regardless. And I like to top that with especially when I feel disconnected, when I cannot feel this connection with them, then I need to love myself even more. The one question that I need to ask myself when I feel separated, fearful, grieving, angry, disconnected, numb, whatnot, is how can I connect with myself right now? How can I show myself self-love right now? And that is why we need present moment awareness for this. So as we're coming to the end of our time here, guys, you can see I have just a few more slides. We're not going to be able to go through them. I literally want to do a second part of this workshop because I think that these things are so essential right now, especially in this time where we are now obvious for everybody, where it becomes almost impossible for us to connect with others. In other words, where we have the perfect opportunity to connect more within. So we're going to start here where we are leaving off right now, and I want to just give you guys an opportunity here right now, just as of where we are here with part 1 right now. What did you learn about heart connection today from this transmission and workshop combination? And by the way, if you're listening to this webinar right now, to the recording, then use the attached invocation to do this, what we've done as transmission here, as group transmission with yourself. And maybe do this, I should probably say this in the intro, before you go through all these through the recordings here, because it's essential that you internalize this feeling of connectedness and that you have a reference feeling for this yourself, because nobody can tell you what you or how you are feeling your inner connection. It's something that you need to claim for yourself, that you need to give yourself permission for, by you consciously choosing to actually do it and to give yourself that space. It can take anything from, a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes of dedication or intention, or like Rick said, to cultivate this. But just real quick here before we leave off, what are some of the things that you've learned today? Intellectual learning, or maybe higher learning. Higher learning is always a different kind of learning. It's harder to express into words, right? We often miss the words to express that. But sort of one key element here that maybe that jumps out for you.
Well, this was this was very, very abundant session and webinar. For me, what stuck out the most is, of course, the deservingness and actually the material abundance, money especially, that sticks out, that I still it sort of came to me during the webinar, like
how you tie the amount of money that you make to the love or connection that you deserve, kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's a big one. A lot of us have that. Because it plays directly into our worthiness, right? So if we don't feel like we are worth something, and it expresses in our financial situation, then we literally see the proof right there. Right? See? And I don't even make enough money. That's the proof that I don't deserve.
And especially right now, it's being triggered a lot, and it helps me to. This webinar helped me to actually see that, recognize the connection versus not non-connection, and recognize when I'm not in connection, and to consciously choose to be connected and let go of all that ego fear.
Very cool. Yes, a few people are chiming in here. This judgment of things, like to let go of judgment. Present moment awareness. Yes, obviously that is kind of like given, that we have to first even just allow ourselves to take this moment of being here, touch basing with ourselves, right? Yeah. What else? That
I feel
nothing is
like for me, it's like the essence, like there's nothing more important than to feel connected. And
yes.
lately, for me, it's been opposite than most people. I've been overly busy, which,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fortunate because I do have spaces throughout the day to connect. But I
Mm-hmm.
notice that my need for connection, it's not fully, you know, I'm not being as disciplined, I guess. I haven't allowed myself this space to actually go more deeper into my own connection and allow myself to have the need for more space and more time for self-care. So this workshop has helped a lot to take responsibility and look into that. So, yeah.
A lot of people are actually chiming in here with this, what you just said, Denise. We all kind of feel this in our way, but basically, the more clarity about what blocks our heart connection, and that there is much more really that blocks it, than we do to unblock it, right? Isn't that
Right.
kind of like what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Anything
Thank
else you
you.
guys want to add? Okay, this is a wonderful point to conclude our part one of heart connection and self-love. And I'm literally looking forward to doing a second part here, because I often stress myself out to trying to cram so much things into one workshop, not realizing that it would be much better to just do two, okay, about the same subject, because this is one of the most fundamental, one of the most vital and instrumental subjects that we can actually, well, work with and talk about and, work on for ourselves and with another. My big takeaway from this workshop experience here with you, and I don't know if you guys felt this too, was that when we share things, when we work on something together, when we did this slide where I had you define what love feels like for you, okay, what your reference feeling is to self-love or connection. Energetically, this was extremely powerful. Did you guys feel this too?
Yes.
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 It was so powerful to hear somebody else say something that I am maybe just never really thought about it or never tried to put this into words, right? But to hear you guys say the things that I feel, and then in the process of that, becoming more aware of it. So that to me was the big takeaway here from our workshop, and it never ceases to amaze me what happens when we actually share this kind of experience, when we go into this mutual exchange. This is the proof for me that we are all designed to connect and to be connected. We don't need permission from the outside. We don't need anybody to tell us that we can do this. We just need to actually do it. And then wonderful things happen. Awesome. I'm working on the calendar for April right now. That will be published tomorrow. So the next Healing Circle workshop will definitely be in April because it's so timely. And then we can discuss some of the aspects of self-love deficiency, like what actually happens in us when we don't work on this connection. Yeah, we've covered a few things here, allergies and of course the fears and so forth, but I want to go a little deeper into this for the awareness making. And I also would love to reflect more on these questions, namely, these things that we find out for ourselves, what we truly want, what we truly need, who we truly are, because those are the three most important questions that are going through our collective. And that's where a lot of the fear attacks, because we cannot answer these questions without our inner heart connection. So the remedy for the fear is trust through inner connection. big, big reminder and message to all of us. The number one remedy for fear is trust through connection. Thank you all for coming, for sharing. Thank you all, transCODES, for basically running the show here. Wonderful sharing, and definitely worth watching and spending my time with to facilitate this, and also to just listen to it, to tune ourselves back into this feeling, to saturate ourselves with this self-connective subject.